Na 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 keeps rolling on.
I mean, Pete. I mean, I worked with Pete on the Hitman and her, and I mean, but he could spot talent. There's no doubt about
That he spotted talent, and I think he liked. I wrote loads of songs for them there. Some of them were released with some of these artists there, and it was great. But it was getting back to the kids of today. I was there for 11 months. I was never paid anything, and I worked night shift from 7-8 in the evening till 7-8 in the morning, 7 days a week, because it was he said that this is the best studio in the world. We're the most successful. You'll pick up tricks of the trade here, there, and there. And to be honest, I don't regret that almost a year, because it was a learning curve that was amazing. I thought you saw, what they liked, what they didn't like, how it worked. You had people working on a track there. You had other people working in the basement with the synthesizers and the strings. You had a group of people here that were going to get in and do backing vocals. It was a factory. It was a factory, no doubt about it, and a very successful one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Pete had based PWL on Motown and the thing with Berry Gordy, because obviously I found that fascinating, that story that Berry Gordy had the Motown thing, and how he used to A&R his record was he'd go into the car factories in Detroit. There'd be like 2,000 people sitting working on the factory floor, and he would play the records through the tannoy, and then he'd say, "Put your hand up if you want to buy it." But he took the money off them there and then, and he wouldn't release a record unless a certain percentage of people put their hands up. So, great way to learn the music, I mean. But that was his judge on whether the record was working or not. Was if you put your hand up, you're going to buy it. It's amazing. Yeah, but so I mean, you work with PWL, and then you go back to Sweden, I take it, and then you
go back to Sweden, yeah.
And you create your solo album. Was that the sort of first, the John Ballard album? Then was that?
I'd done, just to get things in, because I've explained that in Sweden, the big restaurants, the big hotels, they had a set menu, not only food but entertainment for like the whole month.
Yeah.
And I realized that I was studying at the university. And no, I hadn't. I'd finished by then. We're now talking about 80, 81. I'd finished my studies. I'd got my degree. I actually did a 10, 11-month course through the university at Cambridge University as teaching English as a foreign language. It's called the RSA. And I did that basically because I thought, when I'm finished with the music, if it's not going to last forever, then it'll be good to fall back on that. So I did that. But then all of a sudden, one day, I'm doing lessons at university teaching English, and I'm gigging every night. And I've been doing this now for 45 or 46 nights in a row. And it's the middle of winter, and I'm driving from Varberg, which is just about an hour's drive south of Sweden, south of Gothenburg, where I stay. And I fell asleep at the wheel, and I drove off the motorway. Should have probably died, but it was a big Volvo, and I was lucky. I'd obviously let the accelerator off, so I'd been slowed down a bit. But that was a wake-up call. So I actually handed in my notice at the university and said, "That's it. I'm just going to concentrate on the music."
It was only by chance that we happened to meet. A friend of a friend's, I know, they're 17. Her hair was like the sun, a twinkle in her eye. I fell in love, she didn't even try. 'Cause too young to fall in love and too old summer nights we shared together, no regrets. Too young to fall in love and too old to forget. The smiling eyes, the tender touch, the feelings that I get. You said that you would write to keep me well informed, and how you were faring, and how you were getting along. But time passes by, your memories run dry. But miss me now, 'cause I'll be missing you. 'Cause too young to fall in love, too old to forget. Summer nights we shared together, no regrets. Too young to fall in love and too old to forget. Smiling eyes, a tender touch, the feelings that I get.
So from that day, that was the spot where I did do it. And yeah, I'm not, maybe sound like I'm blowing my trumpet, so I'll go for it, right? If we take away now all the Ed Sheeran tricks with the the pedals and the repeats and other, if we're just talking about a guitar and a voice, nothing else, just a guitar and a voice. Today, I mean, I'm an old man now, but today, any pub, any pizzeria, any place, I have still not heard anybody better than me today. And they're all 25, 30. And I'll tell you why. They probably can be much better, because they're all using backing tracks. They've got pedals for this. They've got, beats going. And so they just put themselves into a package, and it sounds great. You've got, listen to a CC Top cover, and you've got a CC Top instrumental going behind it. And therefore their guitar playing is just on top of the instrumental. If you're just singing on your own and you've only got one guitar, you've got to do something. You've got to be a reasonably good guitarist. And I think that's a wee bit but sad.
but I mean, there's I mean, it's true. I mean, at the end of the day, I think this is the thing. I mean, when you've worked with, I mean, I've been fortunate in my career to work with some amazingly talented people through my life, and you see these people and they can pick up multiple instruments or do different things or whatever, and you look at them and you say, well, the kids today, there's not many artists I see today. I mean, there's one or two. I mean, I quite like Bruno Mars and what have you, but there's one or two that I think, yeah, you're really talented, you're amazing. But I mean, in majority, the kids don't have, they're not putting in the work. They're not putting in that groundwork that the older acts did.
And you did, right? You did. I have a writing camp. Well, I have. It hasn't been the last because of the pandemic, but I have a simple trick that I try to help all these kids with, and it started for me in Hamburg. The Ace of Base thing had just taken off a bit, and Mercury Records in Hamburg, they had loads of good producers, but they were totally lacking in people to write melodies and lyrics, but basically melodies to start off with. And I was offered a gig, came down to Hamburg, business class ticket, flew down there, and they said to me, okay, this is what we want you to do. And I was paid, and I'd say about 2,000, this is 92, 3, something like that there. I was paid, something incredible, like 4,000 or 5,000 quid then to come down. And what they wanted me to do was, in real time, not having heard anything before, stand in front of the microphone. It's 10 o'clock now, here, exactly 10 o'clock, you start to sing here, right? So they put on the microphone, onto the headphones. I'd sung up, warmed up, play a track, sing along to the track. And they recorded everything I sang, Rory, for 4 or 5 hours. Everything I sang. They put on a really rocky track, and they say, we want you to sing with long phrases, slow phrases. Now we want you to sing with 16 bits to the bar. Do like that, to the same backing track, right? And I did this all day, and I went home and I was totally knackered, absolutely, totally exhausted. And the guy said, thanks, John, of today's session, you've sung maybe 150 different ideas, and we think 6 of them are fantastic. But what they did was, so they took a phrase from one verse and put it together with a bridge there, and they had a chorus there, and I always had a hook line in my choruses. And through the years, and I didn't get any credit because they humble jumbled it and put it, puzzled it all together. But it was a learning curve for me as well. So what I do with most of my kids here, I'll say to them, okay, they play a great backing track. I said, right, let's do this. Put the microphone on, right? And for 15 minutes, just sing what comes into your head. And 99 out of 100 cannot. They cannot, because they're not used to it. They're, I'll sing something that's, shitty or bad. I don't care. That's not, eventually you also sing something that's really good. And that's how a lot of the people I'm working with, and they and of course what they do is they do the same thing at home now. They don't want to do it in front of me. They want to sit and do it at home. Well, fair enough.
There's a lot to be said for just improvisation, isn't there? I mean, when you're just coming up with ideas on the spin, and like you say, whether they're good or bad, it builds the confidence towards songwriting, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think that there's a right and a wrong, but I think we're getting back to "It's a Beautiful Life," which is probably the biggest hit that I wrote together with Jonas. Is there that I'll never forget sitting with a guy called Richard Swerrett and Clive Davis, the #1 guy in the world, sitting in my studio, Tough Studios in Gothenburg, and him saying, right, John, this is all great, and this is great, and this is good, and we're doing really well. We probably need a couple of real shitty songs that everybody in the world can sing along to. And his exact words, which I'm very grateful for, he said to me, and John, you're Scottish, you got this, and come up with something. And he said, and I'll tell you what, I'll give you 2 references, okay? And the one reference was, I've never told this to anybody before, right? One reference was, vamos a la playa, oh, 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 right? So we've got that there. And then on this hand here, we've got life is life, na, 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 na. He says, stick them together, John, and write a song. And he said, you've got half an hour. If you're good, you've got half an hour. And half an hour later, you and Jonas were sitting there with the guitars. We had It's a Beautiful Life. Oh, oh, oh. Vamos a la playa. Oh, oh, oh. Life is life. Na, na, na. The concept, the verses and the sound, nothing similar. But the concept is there. You give them a simple hook that everybody in the world can understand. And then don't complicate, because we complicated it with, it's a beautiful life, you can do what you want, it's a beautiful life, at my nice restaurant, kind of thing, right? And he said, no, it's a beautiful life, oh. And he was dead right. Thank you, Clive.
But that kind of music, I mean, people, I laugh at people because, often we'll talk about, obviously, when Ace of Base started, and kind of thing, the whole project, when you play that to people and you say, what do you think of that? That kind of music's incredibly difficult to make, because although it's simple, it's incredibly simple, but simple's not easy to do. It's not easy to do. I remember, you took me over when, the Ace of Base thing was happening. I lived in the studio, so you had a couple of beds, and myself and Chris Miller from Scotland flew over, and we're there, and everybody's in different parts, a bit like the PWL story, everyone's in different parts of the building trying to write music and try to write songs. And writing simple songs is an incredibly hard thing to do.
Yeah.
It's an incredibly hard thing to do,
Yes.
because, I mean, I find it easier now because I think I've went through the shitty song thing of, oh, that's a great song, but no one wants to buy it. And, and then you come into another song and you go, oh, that's a great song. So anything, but when now that I can really focus in the studio, and I can say, no, I want it to be this international hook. I want this to be this international groove, and so on and so forth. But that's all the learning curve of spending years and years and years working with people like yourself and being in, your tough studios, etc., and understanding what that DNA is of that success. Because if you strip Ace of Base apart, you've got all the international hooks that are, they're no language. They're for everybody to sing, like you say, the oh-ohs or the na-na-na-nas. But there's also the whistling underneath it all. Sure. There's also all these little innuendos that are there, and you're sitting there going, but that's complicated, because there are only maybe 12 tracks playing at one time in an Ace of Base song. Your drums, your bass, it's all been stripped out, and yet everything that's there's nothing there that doesn't need to be there. That's the thing about production. I mean, is so. I mean, did you find that hard process at the time to go through and sort of take that fader? Because we both know in all songs you might start off with, you might have 50 tracks in the production, but you start deleting things and taking things out and then stripping it down to that that basic thing that's what's needed.
Yeah. I think with the whole Ace of Base thing, for me, and what I did, and I can't remember how many songs I've written, 6 or 8 or 10 or whatever it is. It's all, how can I say? It's a lot of it's thanks to the Scottish Irish folk singing. If you think about the verses are always 16 beats to the bar. So they'd start with a longer, all that she wants is another baby. She's going to get you going, all that she wants. And what they're saying is, I mean, I've had Japanese people in my studio now, 2 years ago, who are big Ace fans. They've heard the songs 1,000,000 times. Do you know what? All they can sing is, all that she wants. Oh, there's a message there. There's a big message. I must, before I forget that we're talking about Ace with Rhythm, I must remember something happened when we were number one, basically in the whole world. I get into a taxi in Stockholm. We're going to like the Grammy Awards or something there, and there's no taxi. There's a big queue, and Björn and Benny Andersson are in a cab just in front there, and they open the door and say, "Come in, John. You can go with us." So I get in the car. So it's Björn, Benny, and me, and Benny says to me, "You've worked it out, haven't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I've worked it out." And this is exactly what he's talking about, because ABBA use, I've been treated by you since I don't know when. Da, 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 da. They have a long phrase and they go into the 16 beats to the bar. And that's on 50 ABBA songs, the same trick. And he said to me, I'm telling you now, which is tell your 35,000 fans here, is that he said, for Christ's sake, don't tell anybody. Na 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 na, na 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 na, na 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 na, keeps rolling on.